Hello, and welcome back to AATV Live with me, your host, Tom Anvil Hibbard, and some very special guests as usual. So let's do the standard caveats. I'm in the garden room. There may be noises. The greyhounds have gone to bed, so I probably won't be attacked by them at any point soon. Really good to see you all here tonight. I see the comment section is already kicking off and you're all introducing yourselves to each other, which is absolutely lovely. Today we're talking all about what is the best airsoft gun. I'm going to stress airsoft gun to YouTube so we don't lose the stream. So let's all type airsoft replica into the comment section so YouTube knows we're not talking about real guns, please. As one of our guests has had a stream taken down recently because of that kind of thing. So although we're going to talk about what's the best airsoft gun, we're not probably really going to answer that question very much, though we might give you some personal perspectives towards the end of this live stream. What we're going to talk about is what is best, what does that mean, what does that mean to different people, and what does that mean to us. So I'll be very happy to see you commenting about what's your best airsoft gun and what matters to you, what drives your kind of buying decision. So before we move on, I'm going to introduce my guests. Two veterans of my live streams, Phil from Clearwater Airsoft and Ben from English Kiwi Airsoft. How are you doing, guys?
Hello.
Not bad, thanks, mate. You?
Very, very well. I'm a little bit tired, so we're going to rattle through this a bit. Oh, God, they're all talking to each other. That's lovely.
They're all taking
What's going on?
So, let's just do the normal, while we're waiting for people to join stream, let's do the normal AATV live question, which is, what's in your cup, Phil?
Tonight I have a very nice, cheeky little Chateau Nurse du Pape wine, and it is delicious.
And Ben, what are you imbibing tonight?
I have cheap red, which is normally used for cooking.
I'm drinking our local brewery's Totally Brewed 4 Hopman of the Apocalypse, though I may be moving on to their stout, which is a hazelnut milk stout. It's down there today because they've got a very small brewery tap and they've had to close due to Nottingham's COVID restrictions. So I was down. So they're operating as a kind of bottle shop takeout. So I was down there buying some beer off them.
Doing your bit.
Doing my bit to help. They're really good people and they're a really good brewery and we want to support them. Okay, so. What kind of airsofty things have we been up to since we last really spoke, Phil? I know you've been your promise to not buy any more airsoft guns has been thoroughly shattered again.
Yeah, I might have bought like 8 this year after saying I wasn't buying any more. And my latest one is the brand new Marui Gas Blowback Mark 18, which is lovely. So I'm justified in buying that, I think. But I've been out most weekends actually.
You've been playing a lot more than you've been playing a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I've been out most weekends. It's been great. Really enjoyed it.
And Ben, you've started marshalling at a new local site to you because you've moved house.
Yeah, I've moved house, and in between setting up the new house and the new studio, I've been going and getting experience marshalling at Gunman Tuddenham, seeing it's all of 5 minutes down the road from me. So been doing that. Been playing most weekends, or at least turning up and standing around and watching other people play most weekends.
But I might be interesting to do an episode on marshalling at some point.
Yeah,
I think it gives you really good perspective. Which
oh yeah,
yeah,
and I found player marshalling has changed my style quite a lot because you're less cautious because you don't care if you win or lose or die. You're just there to try and get other people to push and have a good time.
Cool. We'll come back to that. I think it'd be a really interesting live stream actually. Last event I went to was another gunman, but down at Eversley, which was Descent, which was a ultra modern British versus Russians milsim. I actually did a bit of sleeping in a basher in a bivvy bag in the woods, which I actually thoroughly enjoyed. And there's a video up on the channel from that. Okay, so let's. So we've done our what's in the cup. So again, we're talking about what's the best airsoft gun or what am best canoe, best canoe and FAMAS, obviously.
Should we just get that out of the way?
Let's just get out of the way. Let's get best canoe and FAMAS out of the way. And that.
Well, at least it's the bullpup you're saying there. You're most
okay, so before we get on to what we think am the best guns, I want to talk about what makes the best gun. And I think for me, the best gun differs hugely, and what best means differs hugely between different people. So should we have a little dive into some of those aspects? So we've all been on the forums. So what kind of aspects do you think people are actually talking about when they talk about best gun?
Usability, accuracy, consistency, reliability.
Rate of fire seems to be another one. It's like you have the best gun if you can do 50 or 60 rounds a second, which I think is not the case. But
No.
is the thing
I
I see
don't think
argued.
that's right, no. Yeah, there's a lot of people doing stupid round per second builds.
So kind of talk about so we're talking about performance there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that performance
For
could.
a lot of people, they just want to pick the gun up and know when they pull the trigger it's going to shoot, and they roughly know that last time they could shoot somebody at 55 metres, this time they'll be able to shoot somebody at 55 metres, and in 2 weeks when they pick it up again, they'll be able to shoot somebody at 55 metres. To me, that's what most people want out of an airsoft gun.
Yeah.
They want to be able to just use it, and it works every time.
Okay, so performance-wise, obviously there's you've got power, accuracy, range, rate of fire, and all of that kind of stuff. Price comes up quite a lot. What do we think about kind of almost?
Yeah, I think that's another thing. People are always trying to get the most bang for the buck, and that is a big contributing factor to what is a good gun. But then again, you've got the other end of the spectrum of, oh, this is a really good gun because I only paid, £100 for it, or this is a really good gun because I've just dropped £1,500 and it shakes the bullets about when it fires.
Phil.
Which is a really important feature, actually.
Oh no! I completely agree. Every time I watch a video, I'm just like, oh.
It makes you smile every time you see those bullets dancing when you pull the trigger. But you're right. I mean, I bought a Spectre that was 110 quid, and it was absolutely brilliant. I loved that gun. I sold it to a mate, I think, to use as a starter gun. But for me, that was, for a while, probably one of my best airsoft purchases. It cost nothing, really. And yet, it was tough. I didn't worry about if I broke it, because it was reasonably cheap. It was an AR, so parts were plentiful if I did. But it just worked. And it worked well, and it was built well. It looked good. It even had licensed trademarks on it, which to me is kind of important. I like guns that are based on real guns. I don't like ones that aren't. They don't necessarily have the trademarks on, but I don't like it if it's a gun that's not based on a real firearm.
Yep.
That's important to me.
Okay, so
I think we're all in agreement there on that one.
Yeah, I think so. I think we touched on price. I think there's almost two things with price, isn't there? There's three. So there's the lower end, getting one that kind of vaguely works for as low price as possible.
Yeah.
There's your best bang for your buck, almost efficient. Your price per efficiency mark, and then there's obviously people like owning really nice things and spending a lot of money on them, and so that can also be quite a significant driver for a lot of people. I want to buy what's the most expensive.
Yeah, some people do that, don't they? I generally don't really mind what they cost if I think it's worth it.
Oh, absolutely. At the end of the day, it's however much you're willing to spend on it.
Yeah, because I bought, I don't know if you know, Tom, but I've got a Marui Mark 46. And I've had people
this is news.
take the mickey out of me for buying one for 1,200 quid. But to me, it was worth every penny. And it's the first support gun I've ever bought because there's never been one before it that's really appealed to me. So,
yeah. I mean, you had people saying that why don't you buy an A&K instead?
Yeah.
An A&K probably being a third of the price. So what was it that made you spend 3 times more than an A&K for the TM? Because I think that's quite an interesting discussion.
Because it was Marui, so I knew that they wouldn't have released it if it wasn't going to work. And I know they had some problems with the dovetail mount to the magazine. I've not, touch wood, done anything to mine yet, and I've not really babied it. I'm not a little guy, and I don't really treat them with kid gloves. But it was the fact that you had to rack it before you could fire it. After about 200 rounds, it would just stop. So you had to rack it again, which was about what you get with a belt of ammunition. And And of course, the ammunition bouncing so it looks like it's feeding into the feed tray is just a nice feature. But it's accurate, it shoots well, it sounds good. It's not massively heavy like some, but it is heavy. And it's just really, really well built. So to me, I get all that, and it was worth it.
Cool. Okay, so another thing people can be looking for is almost the type of the replica. So they're coming into Airsoft, or it's a second or third or more considered purchase. I see there's some comments about Phil. Yeah, we've had some problems with Phil's audio, so he is going to be very quiet. I'm afraid there's not really a lot we can do about that.
Sorry, guys.
So you just have to
Phil,
I'm trying to.
So we know about it. Thanks for letting me know. I really appreciate that. But we are having some issues with Phil's audio. So the type of the replica is really important to some people. Some people, I don't know. I think some people will regard features and performance over what type of replica it is, and then some people.
I don't care for type of replica at all. No.
I mean, I think what I'm getting at is kind of the model of the gun.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
So some people will probably value performance over anything else.
Oh yeah.
Some people have seen something very specific in a movie or a computer game, and then that's what they really want. So what do we feel about that? What sort of things have you come across in your life on the internet about that kind of thing, or what have you done yourself, Ben?
Well,
Ben.
Well,
because it's not like I can see from behind you have a wild and varied collection of Airsoft replicas.
Well, I thought I was going to get assaulted with ARs are best as canoe, so I thought I'd counteract that with that. But I actually have a wild and assorted selection right here, from SLRs to AKs, just all kind of stacked up waiting. But yeah, so I think you've kind of got 2 or 3 camps, probably 2 camps when it comes to buying guns. You've got people who buy guns or playing Airsoft partly because they like firearms and they want to collect firearms. Obviously in the UK, it's pretty hard to collect firearms. So your next choice is Airsoft, where you can get replica firearms like, military issue SAATs or ARs of any type, or a wide range of firearms. But then you've got the other type that play it because, it's kind of like paintball, or it's kind of like Call of Duty, and I can go and run around and shoot people. And so therefore they're just going to be, like you said, just choosing a gun that works and has decent performance, which is all well and good. But as you've alluded to discussed directly in previous live streams, the whole defense for having realistic firearms is all based around the illusion, suspension of disbelief, and that we are reenacting military and law enforcement scenarios. So then if you've got someone running around with a drop stock and a suppressor barrel or fiberglass barrel with the rail right at the end, I'm not naming any names, the SSG-1 for instance, that could be an issue for the rest of us who would like firearms like these, or replica firearms like these, I should say.
Phil, have you got any thoughts on that kind of point?
How it looks is definitely a big thing. I don't know if people, I'm trying to move the microphone a bit, but I don't know. I get that there's a lot of people now who play Airsoft who weren't around when the VCRA was thought up. Probably more than there are that were. There's not necessarily that many of us. And just to answer one of the comments, Ben, I've got a Umarex Glock to have a look at the weekend, actually. So I'm in the Umarex game.
I'm not. My TM pistols is there. It's there. It's right there. So I'm not going to replace that until it pops. Sorry.
Cyber electric Glock.
It's gas blow.
Gas
blowback.
I got one of the Maru Gen 4 Glocks actually the other day. It's really not helping my case, that is it?
Yeah, you are supposed to be.
I didn't mean to. It just happens.
I'm waiting on the Wii High Power Mark III to drop, which apparently it's doing
shipping.
Soon.
Shipping. It is shipping apparently. Yeah, that's been a long one. Okay, so let's move on to.
That's important. I think the suspension of disbelief
is
how we got to keep the hobby.
It is.
Speedsoft has chuff all
Oh,
to do with it.
we're going to start another culture war in the comments.
We might do, but it's got nothing to do with it. It's not Airsoft as was fought for in 2006.
It's a different
And
hobby
not
of sport,
what we
really.
gained an exemption for.
I played
No.
Speed.
Suspension of disbelief doesn't involve, as Ben said, a gun with a PVC tube on the front.
So JJ Moore's made an interesting. JJ Moore's made a very interesting point here, right? Sorry, JJ. I'm gonna be a bit mean about this.
Is this that god awful pistol?
Yeah. So the AAP022 replica isn't a replica. It's not a replica.
No.
It's a fictitious fantasy pistol, loosely based on a Ruger 2.2, which is not a law enforcement or service weapon.
No.
Which
It's horrible.
now JJ's from the US, so his perspective is
Right.
is different. Is different to the UK perspective.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the. So we need to bear that in mind.
I've just started a whole new kind of genre of airsoft, which is civilian firearm shooting, and you go recreate civilian gun matches, and you will go to a range which is only 10 meters long as opposed to 100 meters long, and then fire your course of fire of 5 shots.
Yeah, but when the VCRA was, we're going to get into another discussion. I'm going to move on before I get drawn into this discussion again.
Yeah.
Let's talk about actually something I think a lot of people don't think about necessarily is reliability, warranty, and kind of spares availability.
Yeah.
Because it's really never ever talked about. I don't think. I think it's super important because you wouldn't buy a car from some weird off-brand car and just expect it to run forever.
No.
You'd want it to come from an established manufacturer with a dealer and warranty support. So away you go, Phil.
Sorry, prime example of that is the KWA Chris Vector, the gas blowback, that was promptly discontinued. But you try getting spares for it, genuine spares, OEM parts, where you just, as far as I'm aware, I don't even think they do them anymore. It was about a year it was for sale, and then they fell out. I don't know what happened between Chris and KWA, but all of a sudden it wasn't available, and spares are non-existent. And that's one of the things, if you buy a Marui, you can get lots of aftermarket parts, but getting spares from Japan isn't really that easy.
But the easiest way to do it is
the UK that do really well at getting the spares. But it's not easy because they don't care about the market outside of Japan. So they don't really support it. And it's the same with a lot of other airsoft guns that come from China, getting actual spares as a warranty repair. I don't know. Some of the bigger ones are okay. G&G, I think, are pretty good on that regard. And
G&G are very good. So I know my mate who runs Super Fives. He's in constant contact with them, sourcing individual spare parts because every gun they make. Well, yeah, but I guess they go up and down with QC, and I think demand means that their QC has dropped a bit at the moment. But the good thing with people like G&G, and I think other companies do it, is they give you an exploded diagram of every replica they make with every part labeled, and you can just send them an email and say, I need this part, and they will send it to you. And normally they if it's an issue that's caused by them, then they'll send you the part for pretty much nothing, and you just cover the shipping costs.
Can't argue with that.
No, I think that's really cool.
That's really good.
I think it's really cool. So I would always, I think one of the bigger brands, it's possibly a problem with some of the smaller retailers, is that they don't necessarily have access to spare parts.
No.
And I think so. And also some stuff is just a shed load easier to work on and more conventional. So if you're going for this really weird gearbox and then it breaks, trying to find a tech that can do it. Unless you can do it yourself, trying to find a tech that can do it can be really difficult. So, which is part of that buying decision.
It's part of why the AKs and the ARs are so popular, because there's so many of them. There's lots of parts availability, internal and external, for most models, and most techs. Well, any decent tech should be able to strip an AK and an AR, AEG, and diagnose whatever's wrong with it and fix it, in my opinion. Does that make them the best guns? Maybe.
It depends on your perspective, doesn't it? Keeping your fleet running may well be a really important thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, say if you run a site and you've got rental guns and you've got 30 of them, being able to fix them cheaply and quickly is a massive consideration, isn't it? You don't want them down.
Funny you say that. I was talking to Robbie, who runs Tuddenham, and he's like, "We don't fix our rentals. The cost they get their rentals at, it's actually more efficient to just buy another rental and then chuck that one out and say someone can buy it for spares and parts for 40 quid."
Yeah.
So I guess it's less about rental fleets and more about your own stuff. Do you really want to have to track down all these spare parts, these niche little spare parts, to fix a thing, or do you just want one that you can go and get every part of it again and repair it very quickly?
Well, one of the reasons I got when I was looking at gas blowbacks, and I made my decision to buy GHK, was because fine, they may come from Taiwan, but I can buy every single part by number from Simoon without any trouble at all, and actually at not much cost. I can get a lower for $50, which compared to a Marui lower is a quarter of the price. And I can buy every single spring washer, everything inside that replica, I can buy. Because the mags have feed lip issues. Something an episode I'll do at some point. When I bought my mags, I bought 15 sets of feed lips at $3 a feed lip. You were like,
"Oh, that's not bad."
Exactly. So it's like,
I guess you're already paying for the shipping at that point.
I was paying for the shipping. The shipping was I bought the mags over there because they were cheaper than buying in the UK, even after import and everything. Yada. But actually, I wanted the feed lips, and if I was going to buy the feed lips anyway, it was just like, well, I'm going to make that spend. So that was a big decision for me. Having availability on spares for that gun particularly was really important, and the spares on Marui NWSs. There is very little availability. It's very difficult. I mean, they don't go wrong very much.
They're not cheap though either when you can get them. And to be fair, it's easier to get aftermarket parts for an MWS than it is to get original parts. But then you're paying extra for having enhanced, improved parts, which isn't always the case. And one of the things about the Wii guns was that RA-Tech, RA-Tech, whatever you want to call it. People would say, "Oh, you've got to gut the Wii gas blowback and put all RA-Tech parts in," which was a really bad move because they weren't that much better than the originals.
And I remember Gaz was saying this. So, for instance, I've got the WeTech L85 there. Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, get the steel RA-Tech bolt and chuck it in there. It makes it great. No, it doesn't, because it just smashes up the trunnion on
eats everything else."
Yeah.
Smashes everything else up.
Yeah. I was like, well, good. Now I have a broken gun where everything's broken apart from the bolt. Oh, well, that's easy to replace.
So I guess if you're looking for something reliable, you're going to have to go for something a bit more mainstream. Well, and if you're looking for something with spares availability, you're going to have to go for something a bit. If you want that really obscure Russian submachine gun,
what a short AK.
you're just going to be
I guess
just be aware. But
way of looking at it is, what would you recommend somebody who's buying their first airsoft gun? Because I always say to them, get an AR or an AK from a reputable brand, around about 150, 200 quid, and you won't go wrong.
Yeah.
And that, you could argue, is the best airsoft gun.
You could.
I'll just end the stream, Phil. Boom.
Yeah, cut there.
I'll just end the stream, Phil. That's it.
But it isn't because the gas blowbacks are.
Well, I was having this horrible thought. I'm like, actually, HPA might actually be best because it's supposedly meant to be more reliable because there's less moving parts and therefore there's less things to go wrong. But then again, I can't bring myself to say HPA is good.
I have no experience. I have no experience with HPA.
No, this is the thing. I've not used a HPA gun, but in theory, because effectively all they have is one solenoid opening and closing a valve and pulling the nozzle back slightly, in theory they should be very reliable guns.
They are. I have a couple of friends who use them, and they're very quiet. They aren't very reliable when they're working. I think getting them set up can sometimes be tricky, but once you've got it set up, And I do think there's a bit of a stigma attached to them. And I do rib him for having an HPA gun. But, god damn, it's quiet. He snuck up on me and shot me. I never knew where the hell it was coming from.
Which is true. You can get very quiet ones. You can also get really loud ones, like the Daytonas. But then again, you've got to live with the fact that you're running a tank and a hose pipe and...
It's never bothered him. But I guess for me, when I started playing Airsoft, a lot of the classic Airsoft that is now classic was just Airsoft then. And they were all HPA'd, bottles and hoses. So when Marui came out with the gearbox, it was great. No need for an air hose. No need for a bottle.
Yeah.
You just need to change a 600 milliamp battery every magazine.
Have you seen the original Marui AEG advert?
What, for the M16?
No. There's
I
probably
had one.
I'll see if I can find it. And I'll link it on the. I'll link it on the Facebook page because it's hilarious. Because there's some real old classic stuff. There's like propane cans. There's a guy with a track pump pumping up his backpack. Oh, it's just
yeah, I remember that. Which is weird because the one I hadn't seen in there was the FAMAS, but I thought the FAMAS came before the M16.
Okay, War Heroes brought up a really interesting point I'm going to move on to. Some replicas you can't even find magazines for, example being most fouls, Ben. So yes, so another massive consideration is availability of magazines. For me, that's a really important point. We'll go more into that later. But what do you guys think about magazine availability?
Well, if you can't, you're useless. The gun's useless.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. This is the thing. Like, especially if you buy a gun and it's got a high cap. Okay, that's cool and all. But I want to go use that for a Milsim. Yeah, I'm gonna need some mid caps. Oh, they don't make mid caps for that. Well, there's that £500 stuff just pissed up the wall. So yeah, this is the thing. Like when buying a gun, you need to make sure that you've got that access to mags, or that you're happy to run it with what it comes with, and have to deal with that kind of hurdle effectively to playing.
I know some of the fouls are really difficult. I'm sure there's always for a lot of the kind of new gas blowback pistols and stuff coming out. Manufacturers very, very rarely make enough magazines for the initial release.
So if you look at the MWS, the mags for the MWS are like rocking horse too. I was really lucky when I got the Mark 18 today. I managed to get a couple of spare mags at the same time. But it's down to when they make them as well. And we've got to remember that these are being made on the other side of the world to us. So they make what they think they need to make. It sells out in a heartbeat. I mean, look at the new PTS mag, the EPM1. I think that went to sale this week in Europe for the first time, and they sold out already.
Apparently, there's been complaints that they're breaking speed loaders.
Oh, because they're so stiff.
I've not broken one. I mean, but I use an Odin speed loader, and that's tough as old boots.
Well, yeah, you would have thought that
EPM1 for about 6 months, and it's brilliant.
You would have thought that the Odin speed loader would work with the EPM1 because the internals are designed by the same. Yeah, but the other thing, so I know that the ARP9s, when they came in to the distributor in the UK, they came in with 2 mags per gun. So pretty much they came in, hit the distributor, and then every shop in the country went mine and took as many of those mags as possible. And now guess what? There are no ARP9 mags in the country because they've all gone.
Apparently they don't even feed very well. So everyone started using drum mags, which I really ribs. I really can't. I have no idea what you're. But anyway, Ribs says not just access to mags, but it has proprietary mags, and they don't feed.
Yeah,
which is
real. Kind of massive then.
Or they can't keep up with the rate of fire, or they can't.
Any guesses as to what this is? Hey, I'll give you some.
Oh my god, I don't know.
You're making spacecraft again, Ben.
No, this believe it or not is actually this is the feed mech out of an M240 box mag, and it is a pile of poo. Yep. So the way it works is that spindle in there spins around as so, and forces BBs in a hole and then up a tube. But For some reason, they designed it very badly and it doesn't work.
theory.
So, so it's a £600 gun, which is actually a paperweight, until you get someone to figure out how to convert a high cap mag to feed, support weapon. But again, proprietary mags that don't work. So not all guns can easily be made skirmishable. Which is a problem.
No.
Well, some of the more esoteric replicas aren't really intended to be skirmishable in the first place. They're much more collected. There's some really odd. I've had some really obscure stuff come in for testing, and I've had to refuse to test it because it didn't work, or the mags just didn't feed, or it was or they gassed out, and they're really just intended to sit on a wall, plink in the garden every so often, and the rest of the time, but it's certainly not intended for skirmishing, and that's why you get one magazine with it, and they don't make any more magazines because it was never intended as a skirmishing piece.
Yeah, well, I have some
absolutely.
new KTW Winchesters, and they're really, really nice guns, but they come with 2 tube magazines that holds about 30 BBs in each. I don't even think you can buy extra ones. I just don't think they're available. I've never seen one, and I've looked. But,
Someone needs to make a Winchester with a working Kingsgate that you can just put a speed loader into. Now that would sell.
Quite good.
They're all made. A lot of the Winchesters, they're intended as plinking things. They're not intended for skirmishing.
Yeah.
And if you handle them roughly, all the nickel alloy bits in the middle just explode.
Yep.
So, right.
They can be quite a bit of abuse, actually, but anyway.
I've broken 2, unfortunately. Right, let's move on to actually quite timely, given the lawsuit that happened recently in the States with Glock. Realism and trades and accuracy of the replica. So I guess to some people that really, I care a great deal about trademarks. To a massive extent, to the extent where I've had a couple of Airsoft replicas. I've had trades added to it personally because it matters so much. How do you think that affects Airsoft sales?
Shall we just sort of clear up now that Marui don't have any licensed trademarks? I think they pay to use the licensed Mad Bull rail for the Mark 18.
Yes, they did. Yeah,
but they don't have any licenses for any trademarks or any firearms manufacturer.
no, because Japanese copyright. It's not that they don't care. It's just Japanese copyright law.
They don't need to.
Doesn't affect replicas of real objects. It just doesn't matter.
No. So it's not a problem to them. And of course, they don't care about the external markets, Japan. So when people say, "Oh, we'll just get an export model," they don't make an export model. They make the model, and they sell that. That's it. So once that's out of the way, but to me, I like guns that, as I said earlier, that are based on real guns. I've got one that isn't, and that's it. The rest are all based on real firearms, whether they're law enforcement or military use. But to me, that's really, really important. If they've got trademarks, great. If they're licensed and it's a good replica, and that's the problem because we all remember Cybergun, who would let any Tom, Dick, and Harry that could make a gun use the license for a fee, and they were turning out some absolutely shy replicas that wouldn't work and were just awful. But it protected their license. And I think there's nothing wrong, and loads of people are going off at Umarex, for example, for protecting the license rights they have with Glock and H&K. They paid a fortune to use those trademarks.
I've worked for a business which had a department which dealt with license infringement. If you don't sue, you can lose your trademarks. So legally, you have to go after people. And certainly, if you've paid a lot of money,
You can't protect it then.
no, or you're not interested in protecting it. So you have to go after it. So that I think the case in the US has been really interesting for Glock, who took, was it Air Splat or something. But I think that's going to have quite some wide-reaching stuff. I know there's now less and less people in the UK, retailers in the UK, willing to ship a Marui with trades on.
Well, certainly the Glocks and that.
I think Glocks and HKs.
H&K rifles, they're trying to remove the trades where they can.
See, I thought Tokyo Marui stopped doing the Glock trades,
No.
but I saw one today.
It's got Glock trades all over.
Mine's got a Glock. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? You kind of Umarex will go after people. They paid a lot of money for that license, and I'm like,
Yeah,
well,
they must have.
so
But you know, it's funny because to a lot of people, you wouldn't think of Marui as being a counterfeit product, but it actually is. Over here, it's a counterfeit.
Oh, absolutely. It's
Because it has a
interesting because if you
license
think about
trademark on there that it's not being licensed to use.
which I find really funny because if you think about it, pretty much most AEGs certainly are effectively counterfeit to Tokimaruis because they all use the Tokimarui most of them use the standard Tokimaru V2 V3 design, but really Tokimarui are ripping off these trades of other rifles. And,
they're not. They're not. The thing is, they're not.
No,
it's the importers
not in Japan.
it's the importers and exporters that are the issue. Yeah.
So if you look at like the top guns that came out with bellows, that's because they were from Japan and they couldn't copy the version 2, version 3 gearbox. They couldn't replicate because it was patented in Japan. They couldn't copy the gearbox design, so they had to use bellows, which were rubbish. But that's all they could do.
That's a really good point because Japan is like the home of airsoft. It's where it started because it started off as a training aid. But there's only one Japanese airsoft manufacturer that I can think of, which is Tokimaru. I mean, I know that there are other part manufacturers.
No, Top are Japanese.
But Top's still going. Western Arms as well. Yeah, that's true. But AEG wise,
Marushan, there's loads. There's actually loads of Japanese ones.
Yeah, but not that get out into the wider world. Because I can't think of the last time I saw someone with a Western Arms gas blowback turn up at a site.
I had one of the M4s when they first came out, the Magna blowback.
Oh, you poor bastard.
I know. But it had all the trademarks on.
See, I would rather people left them off entirely than put some nonsense on. And then I can have the option of putting something on myself.
See, for me, I see.
And a little picture. Have you seen the ones with little pictures of him?
Picture of Mikhail Kalashnikov on it.
So really,
So, like for me, when I see something with a trade, because when I started playing, Cybergun was at its peak, I think. Whenever I see something with a trade, I'm like, is this just going to be a crap box inside? Whereas now we're starting to see that traded guns are actually starting to be all right. Yeah, it's true. I made a stupid there by saying Tokimaru is for these guns.
Yeah, I think you might regret that. But you're right. You're absolutely right. Cybergun, basically, if somebody was willing to pay them to use the license, they'd buy any old crap.
Yeah, they got a really bad name for themselves.
But Umarex, I think, have done it the right way. They've got partnerships with guys who know what they're doing, like VSC. And the license 416, the license HK guns, I know the MP7s had some issues, but generally they're good. And the Umarex blocks are really, really nice. They're really nice, and
I might have to get one.
They cost a little bit more, but do you know what? It's worth it. I think.
How much are the Umarexes going for over here
They're
now?
probably about 20 quid more than a Marui version of the same gun.
You're getting
So
about
150, 160, right?
Yeah, you get a metal slide, and the trades are bang on, and the dimensions are pretty much 1-to-1. And
But how's the aftermarket? So can we get the spare parts? Can we get extra mags, or are they?
I don't know about parts. The mags aren't too bad to get, but again, it's a classic problem with most airsoft companies. They just don't make enough of them. That's it.
Yeah.
The production facility is not big enough to keep up with the demand.
Yeah. So I would rather, as I said, I'd rather have a blank receiver.
Yeah.
That I can do stuff to than putting on some absolute nonsense. Because I want the right trades, but I will pay for the right. I'll pay for someone to put the right trades on. So
it doesn't have to be an expensive gun to do that. Because if I go back to that Spectre Arms, the core range that we saw at the shooting show a couple of years ago, Tom, on that polymer receiver with the Rock River arms, which is a real AR.
I know, but it's Rock River, isn't it? It's not Colt. It's not Colt.
No, it's a billion.
It's not Colt though.
It was on a polymer
It's like-
gun.
Yeah, but it's not Colt, Phil.
Trademark.
It doesn't have a little pony on it, mate.
It's like
It didn't have a pony.
Doesn't have a
Would be-
pony. That's the only thing. If it doesn't have a
Didn't have
pony,
prompted US government or anything like that.
no
it was
pony.
It's like Classic Army's.
So I would,
was it-
in that case, Phil, I would rather they put
Yeah.
nothing. I would rather they
Yeah.
put nothing on that, and then I could do
I've
something.
got,
Wasn't that like
there's
Classic
a
Army with the
pony on that.
MP5? They went and got the license off B&T, so they didn't have to pay for H&K's licenses for them. Was it Classic Army that did that?
ASG do one.
Oh,
but-
ASG, the B&T MP5s. Yeah.
yeah, but you're right though, Ben. The Classic Army ones were B&T.
T as well.
Yeah.
So
And it worked.
again, I'd rather have a blank one, and if I really wanted to get H&K on it, I can go and get
Yeah.
H&K on it because I don't really care about a B&T MP5, but I do care about an H&K MP5.
Sorry, someone was asking in the comments.
And in the same way, I've got the SEMA MP5, and that's got no trades on. Doesn't have.
Just to reply to Jonathan Jordan, yes, don't ask me about Celsius. They were a bag of absolute.
I'll put that up. Yeah, Phil's mic is fucked, guys. Sorry about that, but we will.
Sorry, I'm trying.
We're trying very hard. Right, let's move on to what should we go for next? Immersion and feel. So for me now, this is like super important, basically because I play not that much, and when I pull the trigger, I want the trigger to be, I want that shot to be as much fun as possible. So that's a big deal for me. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I when I pull the trigger, I want it to feel somewhat realistic. I mean, obviously, we're never going to be able to replicate actual recoil, but something at least to make you know that I'm not, just pulling the accelerator on an RC car.
But I think that's very,
Back down to basics.
I think that's very individual, though, isn't it? Because I remember when I started, just something coming out of the barrel was really quite cool, rather than the toy guns I had as a kid, which kind of went click.
I wasn't bothered when I first started about anything like that. I just wanted exactly that. You pull the trigger and you can shoot someone. That was great. Now, all of my guns bar one are recoil.
Yeah.
They have last round cutoff. They have mid-cap mags rather than high caps. And I won't generally now buy a gun unless it does have those features. Those are really important to me.
I try and stay away from if it's polymer. If it's not polymer in the real rifle, I'd prefer it to be.
Shouldn't be polymer on this one, yeah.
I think the only one I've got at the moment that isn't that is the kind of combat machine MP5 I've got here. But then it's got a pretty good build, so I'm not too miffed, and I only paid 30 quid for it.
Bargain.
Yeah, bargain. It's broken, but bargain.
No, it's a big deal for me now. I don't shoot that much, so when I do shoot, I want a trigger which breaks, and I want a bit of recoil, and so it's just one
Don't
of those.
get daft then.
So I did it.
Someone said
I did a
earlier,
video-
what about the GBLS?
Oh
£36
dear.
trigger break.
I've not had. I don't have enough time on one.
That
To
to
be-
testing with you guys
Yeah.
back in
It's a couple of years ago now.
dark days, then I ended up with blisters on my trigger finger after that. An afternoon firing that damn thing on semi-auto.
I've shot like 30, 40 rounds through one. They had them at Midlands Airsoft there last year, and I think those were the newer ones with the slightly lighter triggers. Admittedly, it was really, really fun to shoot. Would I pay 1,500 quid for one?
1,800, I think.
I think they've got. I think they've got the potential to be really awesome if they're £1,000.
If they can,
If they were
if they
grand,
can,
they clean up.
£1,000, I would go in.
if they can get the production numbers. I mean, what they really need is a government contract to use them for training, which will drive the cost
What they
down.
were angling for with that trigger pull.
Yeah, I definitely haven't seen them at a international arm trade fair
No.
Yeah. But I think so.
with attack sense targets as well.
I was quite excited at the time, but they're just it's just too expensive at the moment for me. And I've hung around on some of the user forums, and the reliability doesn't quite seem. I don't know. I'm not an owner, but it doesn't quite seem where I'd want it.
Do you know anyone who does own one?
I know a few people actually.
Yeah. Actually, I know someone
They
who.
don't say anything wrong with it ever.
Well, he bought it. First mag he used, it jammed up. After he followed the manual exactly and put the grease and the oil and got the exact stuff, first mag got 20 rounds through and then conked out. And it jammed with the bolt back, so he couldn't even disassemble it. He had to take it home and properly strip it to get it apart. He couldn't field strip it.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Well, I think they've got an enormous amount of potential.
Oh yeah, I think.
I was really. It's a bit
I could see that system becoming the future of airsoft.
If they could sell them for grants, they would absolutely clean up.
At the moment, I can get a Marui recoil and a GHK gas blowback and still have money. So
for the same money,
you could buy a recoil support weapon for that money.
Okay, so so we're coming towards the denouement. It's a big word, isn't it?
And we've not even answered the question.
Not even answered the question yet. Let's talk about operating system. So AEG, gas blowback, or HPA. Do you care? Do people care? What do we think?
Yeah,
it depends.
I think people do care. I care, and I think for somebody who's just starting out, I would always suggest AEG, just because they're reliable. They're a lot more. There's a lot more experience, technology, knowledge that's gone into them. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure them out. The gas blowbacks can be a little bit temperamental. That's why I've gone for Marui over GHK, because I know from experience that they work pretty much in any weather as long as you look after it. You don't have to sort of nanny it or anything. Just use the right gas for the right temperature and you're golden. And you're never going to really go above the legal limits for a UK site either.
Yeah, GHKs can be a little bit warm.
They can be a little bit toasty, can't they? So can some of the wee ones.
Just a teeny tiny bit.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about the wee techs.
If it's military, but and HPA, I would never suggest to anybody who's starting to start with HPA.
I don't know enough about HPA to have an opinion really on it.
I think people progress on to HPA; they never start on it. Some people might go to it quicker than others, but and again, I think it does depend what you're after. If for you the ultimate realism of having 30 rounds of bolt that that cycles every shot, that locks back, that strips like a real firearm, then gas guns
and
are
jams.
always going to be the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, actually, let's just segue. Jamie Penny's made an interesting comment, which actually almost translates into what we're talking about. The French have just bought VFC 4116s, which I think is a bit bizarre, really, because you thought they would go for
AEG ones.
They're AEGs as well. They're not gas guns, which I thought.
Yeah, but the MOD do the same thing. I think the MOD's got a bunch of ICS L85s that they use for force-on-force training. When there's WETECs that they could use that are gas blowback. So
Yeah.
I think it's the fact that
it's weird, isn't it? Because the armor
be reliable.
Work on the Wii ones easier than the electric ones.
Oh, I don't know. I think the thing is with the problem with the Wii Tech one is it's just so bloody unreliable.
That's the thing, isn't it? That's your thing. You need it to work. If you're investing all that money to get a bunch of guys into a training area, and all the money setting it up, you need the bloody thing to work. Otherwise,
this one looks beautiful, but I can't get to feed at the moment. For some reason, it's just not feeding BBs. And as far as I can see, mechanically, it's absolutely fine.
Matt P asks a very interesting question, which kind of does having a really top of the range GNU make you a better player?
No.
Might make you enjoy it a bit more.
Yep.
But it doesn't make you better.
No, I mean
Jeff Cooper, the very famous American firearms enthusiast and writer, once said that a first-rate marksman with a second-rate gun will outshoot a second-rate marksman with a first-rate gun every single time.
Well, I mean, if you look at things like Finnish brutality or desert brutality, or any of the kind of in-range TV where they go shoot and they go like, all right, let's do this obscure 1973 loadout, and they go up against guys running modern ARs with like quick mag pouch and stuff, and they still perform pretty well against them. even though it's a kit that they've barely run, but they just because they are skilled shooters, it's more like, yeah, sure, you might be able to get a couple of longer range shots with it, but you're not you just by having a good gun doesn't mean you know the tactics better and you know how to play the sight better. That only comes with experience. And an experienced player will outplay a new player, or an experienced player with a okay gun will easily outplay a inexperienced player with the best gun out there.
I'll happily say, put my hand up and say I've been murdered by rentals with G36s and I've had £1,000 Marui because I've not been looking because I've screwed up, and they've got the drop on me. Not it doesn't. It's one of those things, isn't it?
I mean that's the point, isn't it? It doesn't matter how expensive that gun is if you haven't got your situational awareness, you're knackered.
Yeah.
My mate's been killed with a Springer pistol.
Yeah.
Well, we used to go out when I was marshalling at First and Only, like 15 years ago. We used to do a game at the end of the day, which was players versus marshals. We used to go out with completely stock TM Mark 40, Mark 23s, and Springer shotguns. But we knew the sight inside out, so we knew everything. Yeah, we had the advantage.
Can I just say that all of my Maruris are absolutely standard?
I know, it's really interesting.
Changed a hot rubber in them, and I won't either, apart from one that I'm going to put that psionics upgrade in. But that's it.
Be interesting to see the difference and record the difference. Okay, I think we're coming to the point where I'm going to ask you guys, what is your best GNU? So let's do it in two ways. Let's go with. So what I want you to do is to have a good think about it. I want you to think about if you could only have one. If the rest of your if you could run, if your house was on fire and you had to rescue one, what would you take?
No.
Okay, and then also, just what's the one you like the most?
Can I sacrifice the kids? Two more.
So let's do two each. Let's do the. If I only had to play with one gun for the rest of my airsoft career, what would I choose? And then another one, which is simply, what's my favourite gun? So Phil, if you could only have one gun for the rest of your airsoft career, what would you choose and why?
Oh, do you know? Shit, I've not used the gas one yet, so I know it sounds good, but I would say my Marui blowback electric Mark 18.
Okay.
It's just a beast. It's brilliant.
Not the Mark 46.
No.
It's a big old boy, though, isn't it?
Mark 46, but it's I'd probably end up getting burnt to death if I tried to rescue that.
Yeah, that's true.
And then if I could only have one gun ever, it'd be my Glock 19. Love it.
Okay. And who's the manufacturer?
It's the unlicensed one.
Okay.
Marui. Again, I'm a bit of a Marui fanboy, really, I suppose.
Okay, Ben. If you could only ever play with one gun for the rest of your airsoft career, what would it be?
Well, I think it's very obvious because of the wall behind me.
Don't
It'd be
say
my
AK, isn't he? Yeah.
I think this would be the answer for both. Just I don't know.
Okay, so that's both your one gun forever and your favourite gun.
Oh yeah. Also, I've invested so much money in this. It'd make no sense to grab any of the other guns off the wall to run out with if it was burning down.
Right.
It's not even got a single sight on it as well, Ben.
It's got a real one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's real wood furniture and a real suit sight. I poured too much money into this rifle, but without fail, pretty much every game day I go to, someone will stop and go, "I used to use one of those. Can I have a shoot?"
Yeah, without foul. If you want to be really funny,
Without foul. That's a good T-shirt there. I might have to do that one. Right, so me, Phil. So if I had to have one gun for the rest of my airsoft career, it would be my TM Mark 18. Recoil.
Yeah.
Just works.
Yeah.
It has enough. It's not the most immersive. It's not the most realistic. It doesn't have the best performance. However, for all the stuff we've already talked about in terms of immersion, trades, realism, reliability, spares, retail support, yes,
ticks a lot of boxes.
Ticks all the boxes for me. That's the gun, which is quite funny because I did do a series which said don't buy one.
You did. And what would be your favourite then? your GHK.
My GHK.
Oh yeah, thought the album would
Just
come up.
so much love gone into this, and pain,
Oh yeah.
and passion, and everything else into building this. It is a pain. You know, no matter what people say, gas blowbacks are much more finicky than AEGs. They need a bit more. They need a bit more care and a bit more love and a bit more attention. But that's kind of the point. And when you pull the trigger and you send a BB, brilliant.
Yeah.
Just brilliant.
Yeah.
You know.
Can wholeheartedly agree with that.
So, what do you think in the comments, guys? What's your kind of? If you could only have one airsoft canoe for the rest of your airsoft career, what would you choose? So, Thomas Lake would have his VSR 10.
Got a couple of guys saying that they'd run into the houses and get the rest of our guns for us. Give them to us.
There's quite a lot in this house, so. Kenneth would have his Evo. Blaze would have his GHK. Jamie would have his Star FN, FNC. Blaze, Blaze would pop in.
That's an interesting gun.
Blaze would come and steal the rest of our guns for us. Rob David, even in stock form, do you mean my GHK or my Mark 18? I'd have a stock Mark 18. No problems.
Then Brownline would save his 15-year-old L85 when he could probably afford to buy a new one.
Jess has put us all to shame and said she'll save her cat. Yes, that's yeah. Fair enough.
That wasn't an option.
I would obviously save the dogs. Martin would have his. There's a lot of TMs going on here. Martin would have his TM416.
TM MP7.
Yeah, Martin Dale.
Star L85 A2.
NWS. Matt P would have one that works, which is yes, absolutely.
I'm not noticing any ARs, AKs in the comments, which do you remember the photo from Red Wolf's fire the day after they found the AK sticking out the rubble?
The AKs were still there. I really like my LCTs, but they're not the complete package.
Yeah, I know.
They're
As AKs go, I thought they were sort of like the bee's knees.
They're really nice, but they just don't have the same level of immersion. If they had final round cut off and everything else, and a bit of recoil, I had the recoil
real
kit.
AK doesn't, does it?
No, but it
doesn't have last round.
No, but it will stop firing when it runs out of bullets, won't it?
Well, yeah.
And then you got to re-rack it, so it doesn't have a bolt, all that sort of stuff. But if I had one of those, and the Marui one just doesn't quite do it for me. I fired one, and it's just not. It doesn't feel like it just doesn't feel like it. So that's the thing for me. So guys, thank you very much. Ben, you wanted to say something.
I was just going to say. So what are we saying? If people are looking to buy,
I would buy. Personally, if I was what am best canoe for me, TM recoil.
Oh God. An erg, but then.
I think you're legally obliged to say that, aren't you?
I think somebody put on a comment on my Facebook page earlier that KWA booked a hitman because I've been buying so many. I would say for my love of ergs.
But they're expensive,
yeah.
So it just depends on price.
Does anyone even stock them?
I would have to have a long discussion with someone. Someone says, "What am best canoe to me?" I'd need to ask all of the topics we've discussed today, and just find out, because there is as is obvious from what we've been talking about, there is no single answer.
Well, as I always say, go and have a play around with loads of guns and see which one you like the feel of most, and then figure out if it's actually a reliable gun or you can get parts to fix it.
I'm going to give Joe at 6mm a plug, because I think his rental service is fantastic. If you're in the UK and you can get to one of the sites that Joe operates at,
which is
he's got West Mid. He has a fantastic range of rental canoes, and you can choose, including Maruis, once he trusts you, and then you can test them. So I think the glorious answer is there is no best canoe. It's whatever canoe is best for you.
Yeah.
And then you have to work that out yourself. And on that bombshell, I'm going to end the stream.
Question with another question.
Of course. So I'd like to say thank you to both my guests. Ben, where can we find you on the interwebs?
English Kiwi Airsoft on both Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
And Phil, where can we find you?
Clearwater Airsoft on Instagram and Facebook. Don't do
Right.
Come join us.
You can find me.
Or destroy
You
your
can find
free
me
time.
on Instagram's AATV Airsoft _Airsoft. YouTube is AA as Anvil Airsoft TV, and on Facebook as Anvil Airsoft TV. Thank you very much for joining us. I think it's been really good
Wait,
fun.
there's one more place. Don't you have a Patreon as well?
Oh, got a Patreon plug.
Yeah.
AATV has a Patreon scheme running to help me stay as independent as possible, so I can bring you reviews without having to worry about being told off by someone else. That sounds a bit odd, doesn't it? But I would like to stay as independent as possible, and the only way really I can do that is to buy in review items using Patreon funds, which the Patreons get to discuss, which is great. We have a little chat and we ask, what would you like me to have a look at next? So if you want to help me stay as independent as possible, please join my Patreon, which is just patreon.com AATV.
Is your tagline? It's like OnlyFans but less raunchy.
Yeah, no. There's no hot tub at AATV HQ, I am afraid. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much to my guests. Thank you very much for everyone that turned up to contribute. It's been great. And most importantly, stay safe. And we'll see you next time.